The following presentation is courtesy of
Foster's. That's Outback for bring me more beer and make it Foster.
By the Loyal Order of Royal Didgeridoo, Lord and by the ABA, Australian Barristers Association, who remind us of the venerable common law maxim,
Mates, life's too short to get riled. R-I-L-E-D. Res Ipsa Loquitur. Eaten by dingoes.
The following reenactment is dedicated to an incredibly important common law tort concept, expressed in the Latin phrase res ipsa loquitur, which means the thing speaks for itself. Although only developed in the past 150 years, this legal doctrine is redolent with venerable notions of fairness and evidence going back to the very birth of civilization. As with all sound precedents, the principle of res ipsa loquitur has been handed down as a treasure of law to each succeeding generation. Hence, Johann Sebastian Bach's stirring omnes generationes, all generations. What you have just been listening to in honor of the many generations of res ipsa loquitur. Today's true-to-life example from Australia features some of our friends down under, blokes and Sheilas, that's guys and gals, at a billabong.
That's a pub to all you Yanks out there. 27-year-old Ross Lucock and his mates were downing middies at a rowdy drinks night at the Janali Inn in Sydney, Australia. They were acting like dills, nongs, Fruit Loops and boof heads. While a few sausages short of a BBQ, a few shrimp short of a full barbie, Ross and his mates were as happy as a bastard on Father's Day, and you can bet London to a brick on that. In between pints, Ross won the mate tray raffle. Now Ross was full as a boot, with heaps of grog. He had a head on him like a sucked mango, and not enough brains to give himself a headache. But the inn's assistant manager got his knickers in a knot. He told a barefoot Ross that customers must wear shoes. Ross had already had 15 schooners, and the inn refused to serve Ross any more drinks, unless he put on some footwear. Ross was riled. "Don't come the raw prawn with me, you sticky-beaked Sheila," he stammered. But the manager was persistent. Ross was a bad combo, a dipstick so tanked he couldn't find his arse with both hands, even if his fingers were flashlights. But Ross was also a true blue larrikin, a genuine RC prankster, so he improvised. From the mate tray he'd just won, Ross picked a pair of pork chops that looked like a good fit and strapped the pork chops onto his feet. I repeat, he put pork chops on his feet. Problem solved. Ross and his mates had a big chuckle about his pork chop shoes. For those bludgers, those lazy blokes at the billabong, they had what they considered the most fun you can have with your pants on. They were really tossing everything they had on the barbie, these fun-loving cobbers, so adventurous they could have eaten a horse and chased the rider. Everything was apples and ace, peaches and cream, until another patron came along. This bloke, Troy Bowron, had been playing billiards at the inn. Troy, a long-time friend of Ross, knew that Ross had been horsing around with pork chop shoes. Troy proceeded past the bar. Crikey! Troy slipped on the slimy trail generated by Ross's fleshy footwear. 'Twas an awful sound, sickening, as if he'd been struck with the full gravitational force of a fully grown kangaroo, or at least 3 koala bears. This crash, this bingle on the inn's very hard floor, left Troy laid out flat like a lizard drinking. What a pitiful lad! A passerby cried out, "Is there a doctor in the house?" And would you believe it? As if by some miracle, Dr. Quinn, the famous medicine woman, was taking shots at the bar. Who could have expected that someone with medical training would inhabit a drinking establishment? Without delay, Dr. Quinn examined her prostrate patient and concluded,
"This man has suffered, on his left side, a severe hematoma to his humerus, leaky synovial fluid in the membrane sac of his capitulum, and compound fractures of both the radius and ulna."
Seeing what the pork chop slime had wrought, Ross's mates turned dingo and snuck off. But Ross had pork on his feet and a slab of beer in his gut. He could not skedaddle or run the Hades out of there. The law could catch him. The doctor found that Troy Bowron suffered in his left arm a clicking sensation, scarring, and pain and suffering. Unable to lift heavy weights, Troy might continue to have disabilities in his left arm and later need elbow replacement. Troy Bowron, the injured customer, was a competition boomerang champion and an upholsterer of furniture. He claimed to have lost past and future earnings, as well as incurred various medical expenses. Bowron sued the Denali Inn, its licensee, and Ross in Australia's District Court for New South Wales. Bowron won a damages award of what would be almost $35,000 in American dollars. The whole gist of the case was that the boss should have known that Ross was inebriated. He'd had about 15 Victoria bitter beers. Ross Lucock, clad with pork chops strapped to his feet, had created a hazard for everyone in the vicinity. The inn should have, for safety's sake, removed from the premises both Ross Lucock and his slippery pork chops. In June 2002, Judge Anthony Puckeridge found that the Denali Inn and its licensee had breached their duty of care by failing to clean the area that Lucock had made a greasy, meaty mess. However, Ross Lucock was so drunk that he did not even remember placing the pork chops on his feet. He owed no duty of care, Judge Puckeridge ruled, and the judge actually ordered Troy Bowron to pay his former friend Ross Lucock's legal costs defending Troy's lawsuit.
And you don't have to speak Australian to know the moral of the story. The common law principles of negligence used in America also apply down under. As for our cultural knowledge of pubs and pints and the whole experience of pork chops on the Barbie, but no pork chops on one's feet, that helps us to understand the court's decision. Doesn't it help us to get the full picture of the case? Sometimes what really matters is a picture in one's mind. It's an image of these pork pieces as shoes, not any particular words, that really says it all. Res Ipsa Loquitur. You know, the pork chops speak for themselves.
Once a jolly swagman camped by the billy bong under the shade of a coolabah tree. And he sang as he watched and waited till his billy boiled. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda,